Welcome back to another episode of Small Business Chronicles. I am your co-host, Brian Stone, and serial entrepreneur. I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but this show is not your typical business show. We talk about stories across the board, all industries, all topics. It has become the Swiss Army knife in the podcast space for business owners, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. And keep in mind, a small business is anything up to 100 employees. So we have communities of all sizes here. So I'm really excited to talk today about something that I'm passionate about as a parent, and that is early childhood development. We're actually talking about the franchise space and the early childhood development space. So I'm really excited about our two guests that we have today. So I'm actually with Ivy Kids, and the gentlemen that are joining me today are Amyn Bandali and Dick Wren. Amyn is the CEO for Ivy Kids, and Dick came on to help them grow and be director of franchise development. So I know we're going to have a great conversation about their story. So we'll jump right into it. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Doing great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about why you guys started, because this show is all about stories, right? We love hearing the stories in business and hearing about passionate leaders like yourselves. So what was really the start of Ivy Kids?
Yeah, so I think being in a small business, being in entrepreneurship was very much ingrained in me in a young age with my parents and family. My parents, Al and Layla, actually started Ivy Kids. You know, we opened our first business, our first location in Pearland, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. And during that time, I was very involved, even from a young age. You know, it was driving every weekend with my dad, us looking at sites, us, speaking with brokers, me sitting in on, if there was a developer being brought in and talking about the site to watching the construction every day. So my dad and I, we didn't really throw around the football. We bonded over real estate and over business. And really, I got to see firsthand how they pursued it. You know, they wanted quality care for my brother and I when they were young. When we were young, we were put in mom and pop schools, and there was not a lot of learning. It was a traditional daycare, so we would just come back with bumps and bruises. My parents never knew what led to that, and there wasn't really a curriculum or structure at some of these programs, and they wanted to develop a school that was education first. And, that was an inspiring vision. It led to a great enrollment and a really successful business. And, during college and afterwards, I'd always been interested in going back. I thought my parents had built an amazing brand. And that's kind of why I am back at Ivy Kids today, now kind of leading the brand and helping it grow with other business owners.
So where did the name come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as I said, my family and I, we've worked really close together, and it was my brother and I sitting in the car. We were brainstorming names, and it was kind of a combination of Ali and I and saying, hey, how about Ivy Kids as a name? And, we had a lot of really interesting oddball names out there, and that one really stuck. And I think it's the fact that, hey, we are looking for high quality care, and I think Ivy Kids really promotes learning, really promotes development, and that's kind of how we finalized that name.
Love it. Love it. And just for context for the people that are listening, this isn't your typical business, right? I mean, you guys are at 17 locations. You've got 9 more that are on the way. They're in development, right? I mean, it's clear that your strategy to being education first instead of just being, respite care, right, is effective and really resonating with parents. I mean, I know that that's what I looked for my son, and it's not always easy to find, right?
Absolutely. I mean, parents are getting much more educated on the importance of high quality care for a young age. Investing in an education first learning environment pays massive dividends in that child's life. In fact, $1 spent there has a much better return on that child's career than $10 spent if that child was at a top university. So parents see that, hey, they're both working, they need care for their children. They want something that's education based. They see the social, emotional components too, where their child is exposed to other children, exposed to teachers. And that allows for an even smoother transition when they go into kindergarten, when they go to an elementary school environment. So all of those things we really try and foster in our school. In addition to that, we have cafeterias and we have a kitchen on site. We don't cater. We don't expect the parents to pack a lunch every single day. We cater to dietary restrictions. We have a very, health-based food program, and that also pays dividends in the classroom as well. There is a great link between how children respond with great food and how they're learning and what the classroom environment feels like too. So all of these different components, we really took the childcare model and we broke it out. And we thought, hey, how can we improve on each piece? And I think that's led to the success of our brand today.
Well, and I want to ask, what is in it for a franchisee? And again, we're here for the story when we want to talk about other things on our show. But I am curious as to, there's a lot of different options out there. Why would a potential investor choose to start a location with you guys versus just doing it on their own?
Great question. I'll take that, and then I'll pass the baton over to Amyn, because I think one of the distinguishing features of our business model is that we are really focused on growing with the right franchise partner. This isn't about growing with exponential numbers. It's growing the business and having the theory of our business: children first, safety first, education, great environment, and being involved with your community, and everything to do around how do we foster a loving environment and bring that to your community and bring it to places that need a business like ours, and finding the right partner that matches up with those values. And that's how we take the approach of when we're actually taking people through the discovery process, is as much as they're learning about us, we're learning about them to see if they match up, because it's a large investment. It's a large commitment from a time standpoint, and it's a long-term commitment. And so we want to make sure that those match up, and work to the advantage of both parties, because it always has to be a win-win, in opposed to it being a beneficial only for the franchisor. I think there's a misconception in the business that it's really all about the franchisor, but in reality, it's about the franchisor passing on what they've developed over time to the franchisee to take those principles and processes and standards and then apply them to their own business. And so, we feel really strongly about that.
Well, and you're not new to this, Dick. I want to talk a little bit about your background, because we've heard from Amyn, but you're not new to the franchise space, right? You have a history outside of education, right? Early childhood education in the franchise space. So tell me a little bit about why you would shift from the business world of franchises into working on behalf of these locations and being education minded with kids.
That's a great question. I'm a little bit like you in the sense that I was a serial entrepreneur at a very young age. Got into my first business in my mid-20s, and eventually became a multi-unit owner of a specific brand, and did that for a number of years. We got up to 5 locations, eventually sold those businesses and transitioned into a area developer, area director business model where I had the rights to a specific brand in North Carolina. I did that for over 10, 12 years, developed about 75 units, and had a multitude of responsibilities, and then eventually did that with 2 other companies. And every one of those had within my contract just buyout clauses where if the parent company was sold, that they had the right to take us out, which they did, and which is fine. And then I eventually said, okay, what am I going to do when I grow up, so to speak? And I felt that I was really good at development, even though I had other skills with real estate and operations and design and construction, things like that. But the development side was about matching people up and finding the right partners for the right business model. And eventually landed with the opportunity to talk to Amyn and his company. And after doing an extensive research on Ivy Kids, it really resonated and made a lot of sense to have the opportunity to come help them grow their company. So it's a fun side to help someone else grow their company. I've grown my own, but it's really exciting.
Well, and I want to commend you for that shift too, because and I've seen this happen before, but I always appreciate seeing someone make a shift and utilize their skills that may have been intended, initially for a totally different industry and apply it to something that they're passionate about that really provides a lot of value for the communities that they serve. And clearly that's a good match between the two of you, right? To have those different skill sets. So it kind of reminds me, have you guys read the book Rocket Fuel?
Have not.
Reading it right now, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's you guys to a T. So, and I won't spoil the whole book because I would butcher it. But they talk about having the visionary and then having the integrator, and they talk about it really taking two different skill sets. And some people have both, but most of the time you've got in any organization both of those in different seats. And when you combine them, it really, really creates a lot of momentum, hence the name Rocket Fuel. So you guys actually remind me of that dynamic that comes from the book, just because of your different backgrounds. So it's really, really neat to see that in action.
Thanks. I'm going to pick that up.
Yeah. It's a good read. It's absolutely a good read. So you mentioned something, Dick, that I want to highlight. Because you talked about finding the right partners, finding the right people, right? And that's something that anybody that listens to this show can relate to, because everybody that is listening that owns a business works with people. Even if they're by themselves, they work with people, and there's a culture that's created within their company, right? So with 17 locations, nine in the works, how do you maintain that kind of scale and still keep to your vision and keep to the kind of people that you want to be surrounded with?
Great question. I think that culture and vision have to be coinciding with each other in the process of educating them on your brand. And then when they become a part of that system, that they then are integrated into that system through a fantastic training program and an operations program and a support mechanism that really drives the success of the business. And if that's not in place, that was one of the things that I really looked at Ivy Kids, was what does that part of the business model look like? Where are your training programs? Where's your operational support? And they were all well advanced beyond what the size of the company was, knowing that as this happens, and it just organically happens, that if it's not in place, then you will see a lot of failure, and it's not fun, right? It just isn't. But you want to set people up for success, put them into the systems, and then support them. It's the term I've heard forever is, when you're in a franchise, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. But it's still all about following the system. I'm actually going through a certified franchise executive training program right now through the International Franchise Association. And one of the parts that I saw this week was about this gentleman that built this business and, a lot of locations. And it was very simple, but it's not as simple as stated, in the sense that the system's proven. If you follow the system, you have a greater chance for success than if you try to deviate it. And I've seen that over the years where the people that I mean talks really well about this to people that come in to our business, is that we are taking the leap of faith that you know nothing about this industry at all. Even if you do, but we're going to engross you in ours, in our Ivy Kit systems. And if you embrace them, you have a great chance for success.
So yeah, I mean, do you want to kind of talk to that a little bit about, how you built that foundation, how you built those systems, and why they are so successful at scaling across multiple locations?
Yeah, I mean, I think having that infrastructure and foundational is absolutely critical to build a successful franchise company. You have to have great support. You have to have people that really understand the brand, and not only convey those best practices, that training, but also how to motivate and how to communicate with people. At the end of the day, franchising is so people driven. You're going to have different motivations. You're going to have different ways of unlocking that goal setting, and that hey, let's get from point A to point B with different people. So it's so important that that business consultant that goes in understands who that franchise owner is able to establish rapport, able to build trust, and be able to get those little wins in order to get that franchisee to that goal. So operational components, it's the nuts and bolts of it, but also the people component, which is a huge skill that's needed to be successful in this business. And I think when it comes to that franchisee too, it's exactly as Dick said, it's to instill many different aspects of being a great entrepreneur and business owner while instilling early on the importance of following a system. So things like bookkeeping, things like how to hire people, how to evaluate their performance, how to market, how to use tools like Facebook and Instagram. What are the roles of franchising between the franchisor and the franchisee? Early childhood development components, health and safety. We assume that the franchisees do not know anything about any of these categories, and we have to build that skill set from ground up. Okay. While we're
Well, and
doing
it's
that,
safer to assume that they don't, even if they do, right? Because whatever their preconceived notions might be could be different than what the ultimate goal is for the brand, right?
that's exactly right. You can't make any assumptions. You have to do that. And even franchisees that have owned other businesses before that are in franchising, look, there's always components that they can learn. There's things that are very unique to this business, and you're absolutely right about that. We have to make sure that they're at a certain baseline. It's a win-win for both of us if they go through a very stellar training process while their school's under construction.
Love that. I mean, essentially, you're saying that's the franchisor's job to build the playbook, and it's the franchisee's job to run the place, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true for any business. By the way, you even if you are a one location, you still have to have your playbook, and you still have to run your own place, right? So all those foundational concepts really get exposed when you scale, and I think you guys are living proof of that, right? Where if you don't have stuff dialed in, then scalability is not possible, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
100.
we've thought about these things years ago, and where we are in our development plan right now, that could not be possible without the investment in our infrastructure, in our training, in our people to get to where we are today, to make us feel confident about where we're trying to be in the next year or two.
Awesome. You I mean, you mentioned trust, and so I want to talk about that because look, there's businesses of all kinds, but it takes a special kind of communication style to have the kind of trust required to educate and care for people's children, right? I mean, it's if I mess up a plumbing job, yeah, you got a leaky pipe, the house gets wet, that's something that can fit, that you can go back and fix as a business owner, that you can make it right. If you mess up somebody's kid and their development, that's a totally different conversation, right? So how do you ensure that something that important is that consistent And how do you communicate that trust with parents? Because I know as a parent, I'm not always the easiest one and the most receptive when it comes to anything involving my kid, right?
Absolutely. I mean, trust is first and foremost, and is so critical in franchising and what we do. And you're absolutely right. What we do is we change children's lives, and we want to change every child's life for the better that goes through our school, right? And that starts foundationally from safety. I think having our safety procedures and components really sets us apart in our industry. Everything for how teachers observe the children. Every 30 minutes, for example, in our school, the teachers have to do a name to face where they see the child, they are saying the child's name out loud, and they're noting it in their child supervision records. Okay. Or when they transition from there to the cafeteria, right? And we then have to have procedures to make sure that that child is doing it correctly, or that teacher is doing it correctly. And then we have to have procedures on the franchisor end to make sure that the location is doing that correctly. And then we have to have a centralized process to review that. So there's, in the safety component, if you've, maybe gone through an engineering class or science, that's the Swiss cheese model. We have to make sure that every level of that safety, there's no holes. So that way it doesn't start with an issue from the top that's going to the bottom. But we also understand that, look, children learn by taking risk, right? And with that, there's so many components where observation is important, and that the procedures are important, but also educating the parents on where that child is in that milestone, and that letting them know that, hey, if there happens to be an incident, that there's transparency there too, that parent gets an incident report where they can see what happened and that it was observed and verified by the teacher, that they have a plan of action, right? And even things like us having camera access in the classroom and having transparent windows. That's another level of transparency where parents can feel that, hey, Ivy kids, they are living by their policies. They're living by what they're saying because I can actually see what's happening in my child's classroom. So I think all of those things help with that foundational level of safety, because you have to have that in place in order to get to the education components, the enrichment components, the food components, and the other things that make Ivy Kids very, very unique.
Love that. I mean, it's clear that you guys have a process within a process within a process, right? Which you have to have, right? Yeah. So I want to take a step back from the business and talk about the leaders within it. So I would love some insight from each of you. Dick, we'll start with you. What is the single most impactful habit that you keep to allow you to do what it is that you do?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that consistency and integrity are the two that just kind of go mesh hand in hand. Is that I need to make sure that I'm saying and conveying the same thing that is factual basis and data, particularly about the business model. And then from an integrity standpoint is just doing the right thing, right? Is just making sure that there isn't anything that I'm not here to sell anything to anybody. And I've actually heard that in the franchising world where, you're going to convince someone to become a part of a system. And there is no convincing. It's you have enough information to make a full, well-reasoned business decision to see if this is right for you, Mr. Candidate. And conversely, we as the franchisor have enough information on that candidate to determine if they're right for us. And if they match up, that's wonderful. And that's the one beauty, I believe, of IB Kids is that, bringing on a new franchise owner isn't Dick and Amyn. It's the whole entire team. So our operations team, our training team, our marketing team, our curriculum team, our real estate team, we all talk about those candidates to make sure that, are they the right one? And if we had the crystal ball, well, I think that'd be a different story. We don't, but we try to take as much as we can to get to that final stage. So as long as I can I can stay true to my word and I can be consistent in my message, that we have a pretty good opportunity to do the right thing.
That is very well said, Dick. Thank you. And there's one thing that you highlighted there that I want to make sure everybody heard. You talked about that selection process as being two-way, right? You talked about not only it being you being a fit for a potential candidate or a franchisee, right? But also them being a good fit for you. And I think that oftentimes we think of franchises as the flip of what an employer hiring process is. It's like, oh, if you're hiring an employee, then it's you determining if the candidate's the right fit, and if you're joining a franchise, then it's the franchisee determining if the franchise is the right fit. But it's a two-way street, right?
Yes.
Always, it's a two-way street.
Always.
Your candidate should be interviewing you, and
100%.
vice versa, right?
100%.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because if it's not a fit, you don't proceed. Love that.
And we've had to tell people that we don't think you're right for us, and it's okay. It's okay to have that conversation that maybe this isn't right for you. Maybe you need to go find something else that's going to be a better fit for you in your time, your investment, everything that you're putting into this. You're putting your whole life into this, and we don't want you to fail. We want you to be successful. Again, I go back to my crystal ball theory that I don't get to determine how they're going to be in the future, but we do our best to try to determine whether they're going to be as successful as we want them to be. Because, quite frankly, we measure our success by their success. That's if the franchisee is successful, then the franchisor is successful. And if you look at it any different way, it's very difficult to go down that road.
Well, and that's true of any business relationship, right? If you are only as strong as your people, right? At every level, at every single level. So, I mean, I want to go to you, and I'll repeat the question because I know that we had a great discussion there, and you may have forgotten it. So, what is the single most impactful habit that you keep that allows you to do what you do as a CEO?
I think being driven by our mission and vision and being consistent with that is what drives me as a CEO, and that mission and vision is first putting the children first. Every decision that we make, is it the right decision for the children there? Is it improving their experience? Is it improving their lives? The second one is serving our franchisees. Are we in the business of serving our franchisees? They are not serving us. We have to serve them. We have to provide a great playbook in order for them to execute it, right? And then thirdly is making empowered decisions. Are we building a team of really smart people that make great decisions? And am I empowering them to make those decisions? And that goes with the whole organization. Do they feel like they have ownership? Do they feel like, hey, we're making educated decisions? We're talking as a team. We don't make decisions in silos. I really want opinions of everybody. And I think that helps us make those empowered decisions. And our hope is that matriculates to the entire organization. So I think those three things, they really excite me, and that drives me, to get up every morning and do my job.
Spoken like a true visionary and a CEO. So you answered that exactly how I expected you to. I'm telling you, you guys both need to read Rocket Fuel. It's uncanny.
I love Gino Wickman and Traction. All of his books are phenomenal, and Rocket Fuel is no exception to that.
Absolutely. We talk about books a lot on this show because, the saying is true. Leaders are readers, right? I mean, and that application of education is huge. I mean, and you're in the education business, right? Because no matter your age, whether you're 2 years old, 3 years old, or version 4.0 or 5.2, whatever it is, education matters, right? So. Any parting words, any parting advice that either one of you gentlemen would pass to our audience that you feel like would be valuable if they're inspired by hearing your journey and they're wanting to do something similar for their own industry?
I think I think if you're looking to franchise, I think first of all it's an amazing model. I think turning people that were maybe successful in one field and then being business owners, being able to achieve wealth is amazing. I love going to the conferences and conventions, meeting with our franchisees and getting excited if they're looking at a second location or they're feeling great in their first location. And I think it's wearing their shoes, and having empathy and really understanding, hey, what is the best thing for them? And what are their pains? What are they looking for in their business? So I think having sympathy and empathy for that franchisee and building a structure and organization support around that is the key in franchising.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Dick, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I would say that business ownership is really empowering, and there's so many opportunities that are out there. Franchising is for sure, in my world, I've lived it for years, is not a guarantee for success, but it's a guarantee to find that proven system that works, that fits into the way that you want to build and grow your own business. And I was lucky enough, I guess, or however you might be, blessed enough to get into it at a young age and have the opportunity to grow and build businesses. And I think that there's opportunities out there for anybody. So whatever you think you want to do, or whatever you think your investment capabilities are, do your research. Go out and find the things that may drive your passion, but look at things that you might not even consider and say, wow, I wouldn't even have thought about that. But I like the model. I like what the opportunities are available to me as a potential business owner. And then, whether you want to own one or you want to own 100, you still have to keep that focus on the vision and the focus on, what's going to drive this business and what is it that I want to accomplish with the business. But it's wonderful. It really is.
Well, and I want to first of all say thank you to both of you gentlemen for your time and your mentorship, because business is all about sharing with others and allowing everybody to grow in wealth and experience, right? And it's clear that both of you, while coming from different backgrounds, had that early mentorship that was a catalyst for you to be where you are today. And you just sharing your story today, and you sharing your knowledge with your franchisees and the other people you're in relationship with, is also a way to pass that legacy on. So I just appreciate the time that you guys have spent today. And I know it's going to be valuable to the people that are listening. So if they're interested in getting a hold of you guys, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
Sure. So definitely send us an email. We're happy to do that. I'm checking my email all the time. It's Amyn at ivykids.com and Dick at ivykids.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect or follow Dick and I or Ivy Kids there. Yeah, you can, and just give us a call on the Ivy Kids franchise website too, if you're interested in learning more about our opportunity there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much, and thank you guys for listening. Look, if you've enjoyed this conversation with Amyn and with Dick at Ivy Kids, make sure you reach out. We'll have their information in the show notes so you guys can connect with them. And if you like this show, chances are you probably need to do all that podcast stuff. Hit the subscribe button, listen to our other shows. And we have a full network of other business-related shows on our full podcast network, and that is located at smallbusinessdelivered.com. So again, thank you guys for tuning into another story in business, and keeping that entrepreneurial spirit alive. No matter how small your business is, keep in mind that you have a big story to tell. So tune in next time for another great story in business.